Hello everyone, it's Nama Ilon with Ear Training for the Soul, the place to train your ears to transcribe soul, jazz, R&B, blues, and some other stuff. Happy New Year everyone! We are just 2 days from 2022, and I want to wish everyone's watching a wonderful new year, full of joy, music, and of course good health with no pandemic. In this lesson, I want to give you a bird's eye view of the 4 ways to identify chord progressions. These ways are reference points that will help you identify chord progression whenever you listen to it. And you don't have to master all the 4 ways. Practice each one of the ways separately and move to the next one only after you feel that you really take it in. Usually, if you can use 2 or 3 ways, you can identify the chord progression. It's just like talking on the phone with someone that you've never talked before. At the first time, you won't recognize the voice. So you have to give yourself some reference points so you will be able to identify the next time you talk with that person. This reference point could be a high or low voice or a specific color that this voice has. And after a while, you'll just recognize the voice on the phone and attach it to that person without any need to think of reference points. So here we'll consciously observe 4 ways to listen to or 4 reference points that can help us identify any chord progression. After practicing them for as long as you need to comprehend them, you'll be able to transcribe the chord progression on the spot. I'll demonstrate these 4 ways on one of the most common jazz chord progressions ever, the 2-5-1 in a major scale. My suggestion to you is to start practicing on a chord progression from a song that you've already played for a while. In this way, you know how this progression sounds, so you just need to make a conscious effort to listen to the reference points on this chord progression, and then it will be much easier for you to identify it in songs that you've never played before. Here are the 4 ways to identify a chord progression. First way, recognize the chords in this progression. It may sound obvious to you that you need to identify the chords before you start identify the chord progression. But you may not be aware of that you don't have to know many chords in advance before you start practicing on chord progressions. Actually, you can identify 1 chord sounds and already start practicing chord progressions. For instance, if you know how a major 7th chord sound, this sound, you can already practice on 1 going to 4 in a major scale, because both the 1 and the 4th in a major scale are major 7. And if you know how to identify a minor 7th chord, you already can start practicing on 1-4-5 in a natural minor scale, like this. But counting only on identifying isolated chord types or chord sounds won't make you an efficient transcriber. I dedicated a whole lesson just to make this point, so I'll put the link somewhere here above me, somewhere over the rainbow, so be sure to check it out. Suppose we want to learn to identify the 2-5-1 just by its chord sounds. If we decide to play the chords as 7th chords, we can of course decide to play triads or to play chords with more extensions. But if we want to play the basic 7th chords, we have the minor 7th chord on the 2nd degree, the dominant 7th chord on the 5th degree, and the major 7th chord on the 1st degree. So in E flat major scale, the 2 will be F minor 7th chord, the 5 will be B flat 7th chord, and the 1 will be E flat major 7th chord. If we observe this chord progression and we remember the reference point of 2nd minor 7, 5 is a 7th chord, dominant 7th chord, and the first one is a major 7th chord, we might be missing something, because the following progression also has minor 7 followed by dominant 7 and then major 7 chord, but it's not a 2-5-1. This is not a 2-5-1, but we have a minor 7 chord, we have a 7th chord, dominant 7, and we have a major 7th chord. My conclusion, and I hope that yours too, is that just identifying the chord types won't help you to determine which chord progression you listen to, which leads us to the second way. The second way is find where the tension, release, or stable, unstable points are in the progression. When you observe the chord progression that you want to study, you should start listening to where are the tension points are and where the release points are, or more precisely, which chords creates the tension and which chord or chords are the release for this tension. It's essential to do that because 95% of the songs that I'm going to talk about in this channel have tonal harmony or functional harmony. The meaning of this term is that in the scale that the songs are built in, there is one tone which is the most stable tone. This tone is called the tonic. All the other tones in the scale pull towards it to a different extent. The same thing applies to the chord that is built on the tonic note. This chord is surprisingly called the tonic chord. The other chords that are built on the other scale notes are less stable and they all pull towards the tonic to a different extent. The tonic note is also the name of the scale. So C major scale is named after its tonic, which is C, the note C. And the C chord is our tonic chord. The most important thing to remember is that the tonic chord is the most stable and all the other chords in the scale has some kind of function in pulling towards the tonic chord, in pushing the harmony back home, back to the tonic. So when you start noticing these differences between the chord, which chord has more tension than the other? Is the tension in the chord progression gradual or something else is happening here? If we get back to the 2-5-1, let's say that we are in D major scale. You'll hear that the 5th chord, the dominant 7th chord, is the most tense chord. And the first one is the resolution. And if you listen to the second chord, you hear that the second chord is kind of a preparation to the 5th chord. Your job is to start paying attention to which chord feels like a tension creator and which chord feels like the release. And maybe there are chords that are something in between. They are not that tense, but they also don't feel like a stable point in the song. So if we look back to the 2-5-1, this is 2-5-1 in D major. The second degree is kind of, it's not very stable, but it's also not very tense. We hear this as a very tense chord that really needs a resolution, and the one feels like the most stable one. So if you put this reference point on the 2-5-1, like start with a chord, the minor is not very tense, then the 7th chord is the most tense, and the 1 is the release, you have kind of a tag to put on the 2-5-1. On the 2-5-1, let's say, on the 2-5-1 tension structure, if I can call it this way. When you start noticing these differences, you really start developing a deeper understanding of tonal harmony, because this is actually what will help you know where you are in any song you listen to. Let's move on to the third way. The third way is identify the bass movement. The bass movement can really help us to know where we are in the scale. Of course, just the bass alone won't necessarily help us to understand fully the chord progression, but it is a very good reference point. So let's see how we can listen to the bass movement of the 2-5-1 and remember it. We'll do it in the same method that we use to identify chord sound. At first, we just play the progression. Then we'll play only the bass movement and we'll just observe it. Of course, that we can reach each bass note from both directions, from above and below, so we can also play the 2-5-1 like this. After you observe it for a while in different scales, for a few days, 2 minutes at least each time you practice, you can start singing the bass movement without playing it before, like this. E, it was E, A, D, F, B, E, and of course don't forget the other direction. Now, if this is too difficult for you, don't worry, just play the bass and repeat it. D, G, C, A, D, G, G, C. And after a while, when you find it easy, then get back to sing and play simultaneously. E, G, D. What else? C, F, B, C, F, B. Of course, my goal is to just play one note, pretend that it's the second degree of a major scale and sing the bass line without playing at all, without playing the rest of the notes at all. Like this. Dun, dun, dun. In the other direction. Da, da, dun. You don't really need to say the name of the note. If you are not familiar with theory, just say to yourself that this is a 2-5-1 and sing any syllable that you want instead of the note name. The fourth way is find signature voice leading in the chord progression that you want to learn. So what is a voice leading? It's the way that one voice in the chord leads to the closest note in the next one, and it actually creates some kind of a little melody. We can say that the bass movement is also voice leading, but I want us to focus here on the fourth way on the notes, on other notes in the chord, specifically on the 3rd degree and the 7th degree of any chord. What does it mean 2nd degree, 7th degree? Bear with me for a few minutes and you'll know what I mean. Let's take E minor 7. This is the 2. The lowest note, the bass note, is our root. The root of the chord is the one of the chord. I'm talking now about the chord, just vertically, not horizontally. Horizontally? Okay, so the first of the E is the root of the chord, right? The third is the note in the chord that determines if we are in the major territory or minor territory. So this is the third in this minor 7th chord, right? And if the third was this note, we have a major chord, some kind of a major chord here. The 7th degree determines if we have a major 7th chord or other kind of 7, okay? So this one it's a major 7, and this is just a 7 chord. So if in minor 7 we have the 3rd and the 7 here, and you just need to listen how it sounds in one minor 7 chord, it will help you to all other minor 7 chords. This one also. You hear the same relation, bass and 3rd. This is a different chord, but they both are minor. It's the same relation. Okay, so this is the minor, and this is the 7th of the chord. I know it's a bit more advanced because there are people who maybe don't know much about theory, but even if you don't know much about theory and you don't know exactly where is the 3rd and the 7th in the chord, just take what I'm saying in this position and practice this. Later you can hear it in other positions of a minor chord. Okay, I just want you to listen what happens here in terms of voice leading between the chords. So this note is the 3rd. What happened when we go to the A7 chord? It stays on the same degree, right? It stays the same. And then the closest note on the D major 7 will be this one. So we have this little melody in this particular type of chord progression. And it will happen in any place where you have 2, 5, 1 in a major scale. If I take this one, okay? A minor, I'm now in G major scale. So the 2 is A minor 7. The 5 is D7. And G major 7 is this chord. So this is an inner melody, but still you can hear it. Now I didn't play it as an inner, it's the top note, but I can play it like this. It's still inside. So you have this little melody inside, and if you want to practice this reference point, you can decide to listen to this melody in each one of 2-5-1s that you play. So if I play, let's take a different position. Okay, let's play this. This is a G minor 7 chord, okay? The 3rd is here in this voicing. So each time I hear this thing, you hear this thing. Okay, this is just one example of one voice leading. You can take the 7th in the minor 7th chord and see where it goes and find this voice leading. So if we take 2-5-1 in C major 7 chord, this is D minor 7 chord, okay? This is the 7th. What happened when I move to the G7 chord? And when I move to the C major 7 chord, I stay. The closest note is the same note. So I have this melody. And it will happen in any place that you have 2-5-1 in a major scale. So this may be more advanced to some of you because you don't know where is the 3rd or where is the 7th on each chord. But again, you can choose, even if you're really a beginner, find one chord position that you know where the 3rd and the 7th are, like this one that I showed you. This is the 3rd, this is the 7th. And then listen to this voice leading. I hope that this is helpful and demystifies the chord progression recognition issue. And I'm preparing a special gift for you for the new year. So, if you need some extra help with this process, wait for next lesson. I think you won't be disappointed. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next year.